This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Monday, September 21st. This is Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees, so our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on, and we appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. Ethiopia has filed terrorism charges against a prominent media mogul and opposition politician from the Oromo ethnic group, Jawar Mohammed, according to the Attorney General's office. Jawar, founder of the Oromia Media Network and a member of the Oromo Federalist Congress Party, was arrested in June amid the widespread unrest that followed the assassination of popular Oromo musician Hakalu Hundessa. Jawar and 23 other activists, including Oromo opposition leader Bekele Garba, face charges relating to the violation of anti-terrorism laws, telecom fraud laws, and firearms laws, the Attorney General's office said in a statement on social media. Those charged include journalists and scholars. Bekele is a senior leader of the Oromo Federalist Congress. They will appear in court on Monday to answer to the charges, the Attorney General's office said in the statement. Jawar, a former ally of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, was instrumental in the Oromo protests that brought Abiy to power in 2018. But he became a critic of Abiy, accusing the Prime Minister of failing to protect Oromo interests. In sub-Saharan Africa, the United Nations estimates that at least 50% of children do not have access to the internet. A non-profit broadcaster is rapidly expanding to fill an educational gap left by coronavirus lockdown schools. Nazanin Moshiri reports.
From a sofa in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, 5-year-old Miguel is learning how to say fish. For his family, like millions of others across the world, television, as well as radio and the internet, have been plugging an educational gap left by lockdown schools. And for companies like non-profit Ubungo, it's prompted a rapid expansion. Miguel's mother, Celestine Wanjiru, says while other cartoons are for fun, Ubungo's programs are helping her child.
For example, many children don't like mathematics at all, but through Bongo, they can learn and take it as it's very enjoyable doing mathematics.
Ubungo was set up by a group of artists, innovators and educators in Tanzania in 2014 and offers content for free to broadcasters. Head of Communications Iman Lipumba says at the start of the year they were reaching 11 million homes in 12 countries.
Now we are reaching, I think it's over 17 million households in 20 plus countries across Africa.
She says most conversations around educational technology are focused on online solutions.
Having lamb curry. Oh, but wait, what about you, Nuru?
But the majority of children and families in Africa still do not have access to the internet or devices such as computers.
The United Nations estimates at least half of children in sub-Saharan Africa don't have access to the internet. For Miguel's family, Ubungo's shows are the only option for now. But they say TV can't replace the classroom, and they hope that schools will reopen again soon.
Nazanin Moshiri of Reuters with that report. Across America, a new school year has begun. For many, that means remote online instruction day after day. Dina Mitchell checks in on how students and parents are coping with education in the COVID era.
For many, schooling via computer has meant internet crashes and bad connections. On the first day of school, most students in the largest district in Texas, the Houston Independent School District, couldn't log in to It's Learning, a remote educational management system that utilizes Microsoft Office tools.
and teachers and students were very frustrated because they could not access their classes. Of course, teachers' cell phones, emails, school phones, of course, were on blast because everybody was trying to call them saying we cannot access, our classes.
By the end of the week, many problems had been resolved, but students around the country are experiencing a bumpy ride with remote learning, often leading to frustration. Esther Githui-Ewart is entering her junior year in high school in Berkeley, California, a critical year for college-bound students. She hopes to attend prestigious Brown University, and she feels the pressure to perform well even during a pandemic. She is learning via the video meeting app Zoom, 3 hours every morning, followed by hours of homework.
A lot of the times my eyes hurt at the end of the day, especially with my biology class, which is going twice as fast. I'm having to do 6 hours of homework after school by myself.
One of her teachers struggles with technical problems.
Not being able to get to the Zoom and she not knowing how to fix that, or like the password not working, and then you're locked out of the class. And she's always like, oh, I don't know what to tell you, it's still due. But I'm like, I don't know what to do if it's not working.
Remote learning isn't exactly new. Some Americans learned to paint from a 1980s television show featuring artist Bob Ross. Millennials grew up learning from YouTube. But teaching remotely to an entire class presents unique challenges that only a limited number of institutions have fully overcome. Salman Khan started Khan Academy in 2004, an online education website that features courses in a wide variety of subjects in more than 40 languages, all free. Today, Khan Academy has more than 100 million users worldwide, from preschoolers to college students.
Districts are trying to transplant what they were doing in the physical realm and putting it straight onto video conference. And it's a start, but I think we're almost erring on the side of too much now. Teachers are feeling overwhelmed because they have to do everything they were doing before, but now they have this added dimension of how do I virtualize it.
Khan Academy has resource guides for teachers on how better to teach online and keep students engaged.
The catastrophic situation is 20-30% of kids just get disengaged, and not only do they not learn, they atrophy and they just disengage from learning generally. Teachers and schools, where possible, should be able to architect fun things. If the kids don't feel emotionally and mentally supported right now, the academics are going to be that much harder.
To make the most of online learning, he says take frequent breaks. When sites crash, step away. And as is often required during a pandemic, take a deep breath. Dina Mitchell for VOA News, Oakland, California.
With 625,000 COVID-19 cases reported, according to Johns Hopkins University, Spain again leads Western Europe in the number of infections, yet the country reopened schools last week with strict protocols in place, measures that officials hope will minimize the coronavirus spread. Alfonso Bito has details from Barcelona in this report narrated by VOA's Jonathan Spear.
Spain has decided that in-class education is a priority that, in the eyes of the country's leadership, outweighs the risk. Masks, hand-washing and social distance are the basis of protocols that include lowering the number of students per class. Demonstrations like this protest in Barcelona have been called by workers' unions who complain there has not been enough assistance.
This year, here in Catalonia, the educational budget has been increased, but it has not been increased to even begin to compensate for losses we have had in previous cuts, much less to deal with the pandemic.
Veronica, a teacher and mother of 3, lives near Barcelona in Igualada, where COVID-19 infections at a hospital prompted the first nationwide lockdown. Veronica recalls the days of online classes at home and the juggling her family had to do.
Luckily, my husband also teleworked, and we would get up very early in the morning to prepare the classes, and he would prepare his work. When the children got up, he had to continue working while I would go to classes with them, and then I would do my classes as a teacher in the afternoon.
Now, 6 months later, children have returned to class as experts emphasize the need for face-to-face classes for child development. The children in Veronica's class are 5 and 6 years old, so it is challenging for teachers to enforce safe distance and other rules typically understood better by older children.
Of course, they want to share a patio, they want to share toys, they want to share things. And of course, you have to be quite often saying, no, don't touch, you do not share, you do not. But the truth is that it's going quite well, much better than we thought.
While parents live these days with uncertainty, the little ones are happy to be reunited with their companions. For Alfonso Beato in Barcelona, I'm John Spear, VOA News.
A roadside tool for law enforcement may be one day used in the war on COVID-19. A U.S. company is working to repurpose the breathalyzer. Developers hope the hardware that today measures the presence of alcohol and other intoxicants in a person's breath will soon detect the virus in those most likely to spread it. VOA's Arasha Rabasadi has more.
Designers in California have built a breathalyzer to detect traces of marijuana. CEO of Hound Labs, Mike Lynn, says tweaking that same technology may weaponize the breathalyzer in the war on COVID-19.
We've spent the last 6 years and about $50 million in R&D to develop some pretty unique breath technology that allows us to capture and analyze breath in such a way that we can detect just incredibly small concentrations of molecules.
Hound Labs tested about 50 people. More than 30 participants tested positive for COVID-19 after a nasal swab, but only 7 or 8 of those same people tested positive by breathalyzer.
And this is absolutely consistent with what we know about super spreaders, where about 20% of people with COVID-19 can spread it very, very widely to dozens of people, whereas the other 80% really don't spread it at all or spread it very minimally.
Lynn admits this is all preliminary, but he calls the early implications enormous. While scientists work to combat the virus and develop a vaccine, he says the breathalyzer could help contact tracers identify the people most at risk of getting other people sick. Arash Arabasadi, VOA News, Washington.
World leaders will virtually convene this week at the United Nations General Assembly. With more than 30 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 worldwide, the virus is certain to top their agenda. VOA's Margaret Bashir has a preview.
The usual crowds at the annual United Nations General Assembly will not be there this year. World leaders will not be present in New York due to the pandemic. Instead, they will send pre-recorded video messages. Many will likely focus on the economic and health crises caused by the coronavirus.
The COVID-19 pandemic is a crisis unlike any in our lifetime, and so this year's General Assembly session will be unlike any other too. We have a full program, and the stakes could not be higher.
As scientists work on a vaccine, leaders will hold a virtual session on September 30th to discuss ways to speed up the development of a safe and effective vaccine that can be accessible to people around the world. They will also focus on the importance of an economic recovery that addresses global inequalities, is sustainable, and mitigates climate change.
The world is burning, and recovery is our chance to get on track and tame the flame.
Unlike person-to-person meetings in years past, the virtual nature of this year's sessions has resulted in the largest turnout of presidents, prime ministers, and royals, with more than 170 sending in video statements. The UN will be practicing stringent COVID-19 protocols. Only one delegate from each country will be allowed in the General Assembly Hall during the annual debate. President Donald Trump is scheduled to give one of the most anticipated video speeches. Analysts expect Trump to focus on his domestic achievements and ratchet up his rhetoric against China.
I think that President Trump will take this opportunity to attack China for its role in the origins of COVID, and also blame the WHO for failing to contain the disease.
Trump may also take aim at Iran, claiming that Washington has triggered the snapback of all UN sanctions on Tehran, a view not shared by many other member states. There will also be virtual side meetings on the conflict in Libya and support for Lebanon in the aftermath of the August 4th explosion at Beirut port. This year marks the UN's 75th anniversary. An observance will be held on Monday, but celebrations are muted as the organization focuses on tackling the coronavirus pandemic. Margaret Bashir, VOA News, New York.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, a Nigerian laundry owner decries the president's efforts to boost the economy. We'll tell you why when we come back. Welcome back to Africa 54. As the U.S. mourns Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who died Friday, President Donald Trump has vowed to nominate a successor this week. The head of the Senate said he would move to confirm the nominee, but Democrats are pushing back. Two key Republican senators said they would argue to wait for a Supreme Court confirmation vote until after election. What's clear is that both parties see this as a key battle just 6 weeks before Election Day. Michelle Quinn reports.
Over the weekend, Americans mourned Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who died Friday after serving on the nation's top court as one of 9 justices for 27 years. President Donald Trump said he would nominate a replacement for her seat this week. Democrats say the country should wait for a nominee until after the inauguration in January, just as occurred in the final year of President Barack Obama's administration. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says Democrats are considering plans to try to stop the president's nominee.
Well, we have our options. We have arrows in our quiver that I'm not about to discuss right now. But the fact is, we have a big challenge in our country. This president has threatened to not even accept the results of the election with statements that he and his henchmen have made. So right now, our main goal, and I think Ruth Bader Ginsburg would want that to be, would be to protect the integrity of the election as we protect the American people from the coronavirus.
Pelosi and former Vice President Joe Biden, who is running for president against Trump, are tying the fight over the Supreme Court to the nation's response to the coronavirus. Just days after the November election, the top bench is expected to consider a key federal health care law.
So the president is rushing to make some kind of a decision because November 10th is when the oral arguments begin on the Affordable Care Act. He doesn't want to crush the virus. He wants to crush the Affordable Care Act.
Republicans say they see the court seat as important for supporting religious freedom and other issues important to conservatives: religious liberty, free speech, and gun rights. Ted Cruz, a Republican senator from Texas and on the Senate Judiciary Committee, said it's important to pick a justice who will uphold constitutional rights.
You look for a proven record of, has this individual stood up for the Constitution, defended free speech, defended religious liberty, defended the Second Amendment, and have they suffered the slings and arrows? Has the press criticized them? Has the press attacked them, and have they stood strong?
Republicans and Democrats agree there will likely be disputes over the results of the presidential election, and a decision may end up at the top court, as it did in 2000. That makes the fight over the nominee even more fraught.
We need a full court on Election Day, given the very high likelihood that we're going to see litigation that goes to the court. We need a Supreme Court that can give a definitive answer for the country.
What's clear is that there's a new, volatile political controversy in a presidential election that both sides agree carries high stakes for the country. Michelle Quinn, VOA News.
Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the second woman to serve on the U.S. highest court, entered the legal profession at a time when there were few women lawyers. She spent her career working to expand women's equality and came to have near rock star status in progressive circles. She was born on March 15, 1933 in Brooklyn, New York, and died at the age of 87 in Washington. VOA's Julie Tabo has this appreciation.
I, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, do solemnly swear.
On August 10, 1993, Ruth Bader Ginsburg became the second woman in U.S. history to become a justice of the United States Supreme Court. Ginsburg knew she wanted to be a lawyer by her third year in college.
That's the same thing that the Communist Party is doing too long.
She was motivated by the Red Scare that gripped the nation in the 1950s when Americans were afraid of the perceived threat posed by the Soviet Union. Led by Senator Joseph McCarthy, thousands of people were publicly accused of being communists.
There were brave lawyers who were standing up for those people and reminding our Senate, look at the Constitution. Look at the very First Amendment. What does it say? If lawyers can be helping us get back in touch with our most basic values, that's what I want to be.
Ginsburg's parents discouraged her from studying law, fearful that she would not be able to find a job in the male-dominated profession. But Ginsburg was determined, and after graduating from Cornell University in 1954, she was accepted to Harvard Law School just 5 years after they started admitting women.
When I entered law school, the class numbered over 500. 9 of us were women.
2 years later, Ginsburg's husband, Martin Ginsburg, a renowned tax attorney and law professor, took a job in New York City, and Ginsburg transferred to Columbia University. She graduated from Columbia Law School in 1959, and, as her parents had predicted, she found breaking into a man's world challenging.
There wasn't a single firm in the entire city of New York that was willing to take a chance on me.
But with the help of a sympathetic professor, she got a clerkship. Soon after, she started teaching at Rutgers University School of Law and Columbia Law School. In 1972, Ginsburg founded the Women's Rights Project to work for equality for women and girls in all spheres of life.
At that time, there were many, many laws on the books that gave preference to men simply based on their being men.
Lenora Lapidus is director of the project, an initiative of the American Civil Liberties Union.
Throughout the 1970s, as she led the Women's Rights Project, she brought case after case to the Supreme Court in order to establish that the Constitution prohibited sex discrimination.
2 decades later, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a member of that court, appointed in 1993 by President Bill Clinton. During her time at the Supreme Court, she was an articulate voice for the liberal wing of the bench. Ginsburg believed that gender barriers facing women in the workplace today have all but disappeared in the United States. What remains, she said, is something a court cannot mandate: for American society to be open to the idea that women and men need a balance between work and family. Ginsburg balanced her own life as a working mother of 2 children with the love and support of her husband, Martin, who passed away in 2010.
Well, the most important thing by far was that I had a life partner, my husband, who thought my work was at least as important as his, and who wanted very much to be part of his children's growing up years.
Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg says she has always tried to do what she believes is right.
I hope that I will be remembered as someone who loves the law, loves her country, loves humanity, prizes the dignity of every individual, and works as hard as she can with whatever talent she has to make the world a little better than it was when I entered it.
Julie Tabo, VOA News, Washington.
The Aurora Humanitarian Initiative has named Fartoon Adan and Ilwad Elman, a Somali mother and daughter human rights activists, as this year's prize laureates. They received the $1 million prize money to help save victims of sex trafficking and provide health care to marginalized populations. The Aurora Prize for Awakening Humanity is a global humanitarian award. Its mission is to recognize and support those who risk their own lives to save the lives, health, or freedom of others suffering because of violent conflict, atrocities, or other major human rights violations. Officials say the Aurora Prize laureate is based on the nominee's demonstration of courage, commitment, and impact. A Nigerian laundry owner says his business is being threatened by recent increases in the cost of power and fuel brought on by the president of Nigeria in a bid to boost the nation's economy. Deka Chile reports.
At this laundry in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, they are feeling the heat. In recent weeks, a double whammy of price rises for gasoline and electricity has been imposed. An owner, Daniel Elese, says it's putting his business at risk.
You cannot be working at the end of the year not making anything. The main aim of this business is to yield something at the end of the month.
He says he was spending 20,000 naira, or around $53 on power each month. But now that sum lasts just 2 weeks. President Muhammadu Buhari announced the increases earlier this month, saying they were needed to bolster Africa's biggest but struggling economy. Multilateral lenders have been urging Nigeria to remove costly fuel subsidies and change electricity tariffs, both of which have been keeping prices artificially low. And last month, sources said a much-needed $1.5 billion World Bank loan was held up by the concerns over the implementation of such reforms. But for many, the price hike comes at a bad time. Nigeria's economy contracted by 6.1% in the second quarter due to the impact of the lockdown and a fall in oil prices.
If we see that we don't have customers, we off everything.
Barber shop owner Ochifuku Kusefe says higher fuel costs means rationing his generator, widely used across the country to make up for patchy power supply from the national grid. The situation is exacerbated by galloping inflation, with the central bank forecast will rise from 14.15% by the end of the year. That's also increased costs for business and customers alike, meaning for business owners like Kusefe and Oyelese, the choice is to trim back your spending or face getting cleaned out.
Reuters Neka Chile with that report. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thank you for watching.